Hello and welcome to Daily Politics, reaching you from TrustTV here in Abuja. On this program, we discuss issues around politics, policy, and governance. I am Suleiman. Today, our focus is on the politics of Omicron, the new variant of COVID-19 discovered a few weeks ago in South Africa. A viral pandemic is not just a global health challenge. It is also a political and economic challenge. This politics has many different dimensions, from the politics of closing borders to the politics of vaccines, and of course, to the issues of discrimination. Omicron has brought all of this to the fore and for all to see. As you know, politics drives everything, from the thinking processes that end up as government policy to the very deliberate rules of day-to-day governance. Politics decides the position or direction of action peoples and their governments take, and at all times. Since the discovery of Omicron variant a few weeks ago, Africa has been vilified and stigmatized and even shamed like never before. And once again, the West and other developed countries have put their own political and economic interest first and well ahead of the lives of Africans, as country after country shut its borders to Africa and African passengers and travelers. It is as if Africa has been punished for COVID-19, a virus that you know originally came from Wuhan in China. So today we ask, what are the consequences of all these for Africa and Nigeria specifically? How should Nigeria react to the ongoing pushing and shoving? And in all of this, where are African scientists and their universities and research centers? What can African governments do individually and collectively? Joining me on the program today is Malan Ilyas Ugadu, who is a former diplomat, a columnist, and a member of the Daily Trust editorial board. You're welcome, sir.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Thank you very much. But before we go on into our discussion proper, we'll take a minute to bring you a roundup of politics in the news. Stay tuned.
Former chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, Professor Atahiru Jega, says the ruling All Progressives Congress, APC, and the leading opposition party, People's Democratic Party, PDP, have failed to transform the country. Jega said despite the time the two political parties have spent steering the affairs of the country, poverty and the suffering of the people have remained unchanged. He said for the country to recover from what he called long illness of incompetence, there must be competent leaders who are ready to make positive changes. The National Security Advisor, Major General Babagana Mungunu, has listed Jama'atul Nasr al-Islam wal Muslimin, Islam and Muslim Support Group and Islamic State in Greater Sahara as some of the religious organizations backing the activities of terror groups in Nigeria. Speaking at the 14th workshop of the League of Ulamas, Preachers and Imams of Sahel countries, which was held in Abuja, Major General Mungunu said terrorism and the rapid escalation of violent activities by militant Islamist groups in the Sahel since 2016 have been primarily driven by the Islamic State in the Greater Sahara, which operates in Mali and extends to Niger Republic and Burkina Faso. He appealed to Islamic preachers and imams to canvass support for the ongoing counter-terrorism operations. The Center for Democratic Development has urged President Muhammadu Buhari to sign the Electoral Bill 2021 into law. The center says if the president signs the bill into law, it will be the most significant legacy of his presidency. According to Idayat Hassan, a director at the center, the bill will improve the nation's electoral system. The direct primary method, she said, will improve internal party democracy by strengthening party membership.
Thank you and welcome back. If you are just joining us, this is Daily Politics, and we're discussing the politics of Omicron. You can follow us on all our social media channels, particularly on Facebook and Instagram Facebook, Instagram, and all the others, Sometimes I want to say social media, I want to say Twitter, but then I know that we don't have Twitter in Nigeria now because, and if you say Twitter, then that becomes a problem. And we are not encouraging anyone to be on Twitter. So, Mala Iliasu, maybe we can start with a short anecdote. There was this meme that I saw earlier where a patient was asked her doctor. She asked the doctor, when do you think COVID-19 will be over? And the doctor said that, well, I don't know. I am not much into politics. So this what does that illustrate about the situation we are dealing with? Is COVID-19, and particularly Omicron, is it more political than it is, medical?
Well, first of all, COVID-19 and its variant now that is trending, Omicron, are all health issues, are primarily health issues, pandemic. And the incidence or the occurrence of the pandemic, it's across the borders, across the world. It has, exacted a toll on lives, on the livelihoods, on the activities of people. It's even almost brought the whole world economy to its knees. So it's principally a health issue, and there should be collaboration. Collaboration in the sense that it's a challenge to us, the humanity. It's a challenge to humanity in terms of finding the right, what do you call it now? The right, right answers scientifically to it. So principally, the issue should be about finding the scientific answers to the issue. The issue of its politics now, it's unfortunate because it's not. There is nobody, no. In the way the world is now today, there is no country that can claim that it's immune. Whether it's the spread of the pandemic, that it will be immune to it, even if it closes its borders and not allow even a speck of dust to enter. Because at the end of the day, its transmission has defied all the measures that have been taken to stop it from spreading. So the first thing we need to do about this issue is to look at the health issue, because there is no guarantee that if you close your border, that will be the end of COVID or its variant. Because the way it came up and the way it spread has defied all the solutions, all the so-called scientific prognosis that we have about it.
But the thing is, even though it's basically a health matter, like you said, it is still a health matter that governments and political leaders are deciding upon. That makes it entirely political as well. But not just political in the sense that only governments and other institutions are taking decisions about it, but also because it has to do with resources. For example, vaccines, has had a lot of impact. For example, economic, crisis. It has led to economic crisis and so on and so forth. So why is Africa facing these challenges late on now? Because at the beginning, we were more like onlookers, to the politics of the whole thing. Why are we facing?
No, you see, well, I'm not saying that because it's a health issue, it should just be restricted to the health arena. Of course, there's some political component to it. Governments definitely will have to take the lead in trying to find the solutions, scientific and whatever. And in doing that, there has to be concerted efforts from the people, from the countries that have the resources to be able to, mount the challenge against it, pulling other people of lesser endowment into the picture, into the mix, so as, because just if you try to solve the problem only in one part of the world without a commensurate action towards making sure that other parts of the world that they have less resources to handle it, you have not solved the problem. Because at the end of the day, because of the interaction that people that people have, you are bound to have it muted somewhere, it's mutant somewhere else, and it's going to spread. So it's not a question of saying no, the governments don't, it's not a political issue, but what kind of politics are you going to apply to it? Is it the politics of finding solutions in a concerted way, or is it the politics of exclusion, politics of discrimination, and politics of racism in some cases?
Okay.
That is where the whole thing has now moved from the realm of health and government interventionist process, interventionist action, to the realm of politics, negative politics of discrimination, of racism, and of exclusion. So that's the concern here. And some governments have jumped, instead of even leading the way in trying to say, okay, let us see how we can face this challenge. Let us see how we can pool resources together, pool efforts together.
From the very day that South Africa declared that it has discovered a new variant, within 24 hours, many countries started shutting their borders to not just South Africa, to the rest of the Africa. This is unprecedented, in the entire, this crisis has been going on for like 20 months now, since January, February last year. But this is the first time that there has been such an immediate response to closing borders to, a new variant. When the Delta variant was discovered in India, Britain, for example, continued to allow travelers to and from in India. But as soon as they say that you have Omicron virus in South Africa, they shut their borders to South Africa, and even to countries like Nigeria, where only 3 people were discovered to have the virus, and not here in Nigeria, but in faraway Canada. Is that what you call racism or discrimination?
No, I think there's a cocktail of issues here.
Okay.
And then we need to separate them for better understanding. Now, South Africa, who honestly declared that, look, it found this variant in South Africa, was honest enough to come out and say, look, we have this thing we have discovered. Let the whole world see it for what it is, and let us cooperate and try to see how we can, resolve it. Let's see how we can find solutions to it. South Africa's action was even more honest than Netherlands. The Netherlands
How so?
Had it even before South Africa, but they kept quiet about it.
Same variant?
Yes.
Okay.
But they kept quiet about it. They didn't let the whole world know. But it was in South Africa that scientists, in their testing, in their laboratory testing capabilities, found out that this thing is actually here in South Africa. Now, the distance between South Africa is almost like the distance between here and London. In terms of flying time, it's about 5-6 thereabouts. Okay.
Yes.
Now, before even looking at it critically, looking at its the reports from South Africa critically, then we found that the British government clamped down on flights from Nigeria, or transporting or clamped down on people coming from Nigeria to the UK. But interestingly, in that clamp, it was selective.
How so?
In the sense that they were saying people from Nigeria, Nigerians would not go to would not go to Britain, would not be allowed into Britain. But British citizens that are have of Nigerian descent, or British citizens resident in Nigeria who want to go back, who want to go to UK, will be allowed in. So you can see the incongruity about the whole thing. On the one hand, you are trying to stop the...
But isn't that being sensitive to one's citizens?
No,
they don't have obligations to welcome Nigerians, but they have obligations to allow their citizens into their own country.
Yeah, but what we're saying is that if the idea is to stop Nigerians from going, Nigerians who are not well tested by their own reckoning into UK, the issue is not to say, okay, we will stop Nigerians from coming. You should say, look, Nigerians, come and let's cooperate. Because you have no way of knowing that the people your citizens who are resident in Nigeria are going to...
Whether they have the variant or not.
Or not. So what you need to do is, look, this thing we have no way of knowing how this thing has affected everybody. So let's see what we can do to make sure that at its early stage, we clamp down on it, we stop it from happening. Let's take an example of what happened with when the Ebola epidemic happened
in West Africa.
In West Africa, you could see the concerted effort that Nigeria and other countries in West Africa did, and you could see that with those concerted efforts, we were able to defeat it, and stop it from spreading. And in fact, to make sure that.
But even there's politics even there as well, because if you look at throughout the 2016 and throughout the 2020 elections, even the 2016 elections, Obama kept talking about the effort the U.S. government made in curbing, in bringing Ebola to an end. The efforts of African governments like Nigeria, like countries like Liberia, Congo, or African doctors and all that, have never really been recognized in the Ebola narrative. Isn't that part of this whole politics of pandemics and epidemics?
Of course it is. Of course it is, because in fact, let's even look at the responses from the various Western governments when the COVID-19 was raging. There are reports from some from respectable sources and some non-respectable sources, to the effect that the virus, they were baffled that the virus did not claim lives as much as they projected. They were so surprised that in fact, there's a kind of questioning that why were Africans dying in their hundreds of thousands
as projected,
and they saw that and they tried to look for excuses, some of them unscientific excuses, to say, this. First of all, they said, our testing procedures, protocols were not proper, were not well documented, and that a lot of things like that. But look, at the end of the day, it betrayed the racist and political, narrative in the whole thing. Because at the end of the day, it was even supposed to be a matter of research. Why didn't Africa or Africans suffer much from the COVID-19 pandemic while it was happening? It was ravaging most of Europe. This is something to research about, to be able to find out whether we have some resistant capabilities in us, in it, so that it could not be transport, it would be researched upon and be used to help the whole world, so as to be able to cope with such pandemics in future. But the idea was, no, it wasn't to find solutions. It was to find ways by which Africans could be stigmatized, could be profiled, and could be racially discriminated upon. And that is unfortunate, because there's no solution to this unless we all get together and find solutions. The idea of raising borders, raising this thing against restrictions against people from other parts of the world doesn't work. And in fact, Britain itself, when the Americans raised the restrictions against the British from coming to US, they raised a lot of hiatus about it. That why should the Americans restrict the UK citizens from going to America? But America said, look, we have to take care of our people first. But you can now see, on the one hand now, Britain is taking this measure. And this measure, for me, really, that the British have taken and other Western countries have taken, and Canada.
A scientific one or a political one? Because, it is determined generally that shutting borders is one of the most effective ways in which you can control the spread of COVID-19, of any kind of variant, but especially of a new variant that has not yet been known. So it's a scientific basis. But then there's also the political basis that you just maybe because you think it is coming from Africa, then it must be worse than what we already have. So what is that a political?
No, I think we also have to be realistic here. Yes. That yes, in some ways, the British and the Western world perhaps you could say they're right in what they do, because definitely, for instance, in Nigeria, I don't think, let's be realistic, let's be honest to ourselves. I think in Nigeria, our approach, our protocols on managing the COVID, it's not up to scratch, so to speak. It's not something you could be proud of. It's not a record we can be proud of, because, I mean, by their own investigation, they may have found out that, look, some of the laboratories or some of the, what do you call it, the testing procedures and testing methods are not proper. They do not conform to the, best practices expected in doing this sort of things.
But maybe that's simply because the disease is not having a damaging effect here as it is having in Europe. Clearly people in Europe will have to follow these protocols, because the coronavirus is having a more damaging impact there than here. Here, you don't see people dying in the streets the way it was predicted. So what more should we do in Africa, or in Nigeria specifically?
Well, apart from the fact that, they may have evidence that we have not been doing the right testing, we also have to understand that we have a proclivity here, to try to cut corners. You cannot be too sure that the paper presented by a COVID-free, so to speak, a vaccine, somebody has gone to really done the vaccine. I mean, taking the vaccine. It may just be a paper, just like we have with the yellow fever vaccination, and all that. So it's every country has a right really to protect its borders. I mean, to protect itself from this sort of pandemic. But then we have to be also be a bit circumspect. In the case of Nigeria, the number of people, found to have had the Omicron, variant,
yes,
it's negligible.
Quite negligible.
And there's no crisis here about the whole thing.
Yes.
You may say, yes, our management of the, protocols and all that has not been good. But then, of course, we also going down the records, realistically, we do not have, it was not a pandemic in Nigeria.
So this brings us to the issue of how Nigeria will respond. For example, up till now, the UK government has not lifted restrictions against travelers from Nigeria. And as you saw last week, lots of people going to London were stranded, but not just London, but also countries like Saudi Arabia, Dubai, and so on. But just yesterday, the UK Health Minister, Secretary, Sajid Javid, he said that 20% of all new cases in Britain are Omicron variants. All the new cases, and they are having up to between 45 to 50 new cases daily now. So they're even thinking of what they are going to do about that. And he was saying that up to 20% of them are Omicron variants. So shouldn't we, Nigeria, even be shutting our borders against Britain? Because so far we don't have record of many of the variants.
Yeah, well,
what do you think Nigeria should do?
The government has, in the wake of the flight banning of flights from Nigeria, issued a statement to the effect that condemning it and saying it's, discriminatory and all that, which is quite right.
But is that enough?
But they have stopped short of taking, measures, countermeasures, because what the British government is saying, you Nigerians stay where you are, don't come to our country, but British citizens resident in Nigeria can come. So,
and there's more Omicron there now.
There's more Omicron there now. So
here,
I don't know why the government of Nigeria is stalling, because these things are reciprocal. International relations are based on reciprocity. If you treat me this way, and I also treat you that way, especially if it has negative consequences on my relationship with you. Okay. I should not be carrying the can, just to please you when you don't please me. If you think I should not come to your country because you think I have a virus that you think that something of this nature is coming from my country, and then you want me to allow your planes to be coming to Nigeria, but you don't want to allow your people to be coming to Nigeria, but you won't allow Nigerians to go, then why are we in relation to? And in any case, Britain is a member of the Commonwealth.
Okay.
The leader of the Commonwealth, so to speak. So Britain is supposed to take the lead in making sure that, look, these things are, the measures taken to stop the spread is Commonwealth. Why do we have to sit down every time and then claim that we're a Commonwealth country, and when the leader of the Commonwealth, in this case Britain, is behaving in a manner that is anti-Commonwealth? So we need to let them know that, look, hang on, once you say for whatever reason you don't want Nigerians in there, you also would not send your planes to come pick up here. Stay where you are, and we stay where we are. It's painful at this period of the Christmas, of a lot of frequent travels. Nigerians try to travel a lot, but then we didn't initiate it. It was initiated by Britain, so they should also feel the brunt of what they have initiated. If they want to sit down and be reasonable about the whole thing, let's sit down and then begin to look at how we can approach this thing gently and resolve it, because there's a lot of relationship tied up in it between us and Britain. And if Britain would take a unilateral action based on profiling of Nigeria...
But isn't that relationship one-sided? Because sometimes, for example, now it's easy for Britain to close its doors to Nigeria, but it has not been easy for the Nigerian government to do likewise, to reciprocate, as you said. So maybe the relationship is actually one-sided. It is we who feel that we have a relationship with the UK. Maybe they don't feel exactly the same.
Yeah, but for a long time, Britain has even within the Commonwealth, Britain picks the countries that it considers more important. For instance, it considers Canada, Australia, New Zealand as more important, because these are countries that are populated by direct descendants of the British Isles. The others are sort of second-class Commonwealth countries. So when Britain, without any preamble, decided to...
Is that a version of racism in its own way?
It is. I mean, call a spade a spade. Okay. They believe that those countries, because of their affinity to them, because of cultural affinity, because of their ancestral ties or whatever, are more of more Commonwealth than us. We are the people that they subjugated. We are the people that they colonized. So we come in for a second type of second-tier relationship within the Commonwealth system, and it's racist. I mean, don't call it that. It's racist because it shows clearly that they don't reckon with us in as much as they reckon with the other countries, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand. And of course, you ask what can Nigeria do? Nigeria has been conned into feeling that it cannot do without Britain. And then Britain comes in here and gushes and say, oh, Nigeria, we have all those, yesteryear's, relationship.
But Britain is not alone. What about Saudi Arabia? Why Saudi Arabia has also closed its borders to Nigerians. And many people who were thinking and planning, or who had in fact planned and paid airfares for Umrah, the lesser Hajj this year,
the one about Saudi Arabia is the one that is baffling.
Okay.
Because we've had, I would say, smooth relationship with Saudi Arabia. In fact, the relationship between us and Saudi Arabia predates even the creation of Nigeria. Because you found that even before the creation of Nigeria, Nigerians used to go to Saudi Arabia for religious purposes, and so that relationship has been there. And of course, again, the Saudi government should be able to at least approach Nigeria and say, look, we have concerns about your handling of the COVID. And we believe that, look, we want to give you time to be able to sort things out so that we don't have to go, bring down the hammer. So that will give us time to sort things out. And they can even help us identify those that, help us, because they have more resources than us to do that. But well, the type of government that is in place in Saudi Arabia is it is the government that panders to the West.
Okay.
Wherever the West goes, the government in Saudi Arabia likes to go. So Nigeria, somehow, a lot of countries in the world look at Nigeria with a lot of, misgivings, whether for racist reasons or for whatever. But then, I don't think it's a right thing for Saudi Arabia to do, because they should look, first of all, that a great majority of people who go to Saudi Arabia from Nigeria go there for religious purposes. It's bad enough that for the past 3 years we'll not be able to go to Hajj. But for Umrah, that, Nigerians pay from their pockets, that they want to go to observe,
religious
obligations.
Yes.
Saudi Arabia is clamping down on Nigerians. And by the way, the same Saudi that clamps on Nigeria have not clamped down on other countries
Even where they also have
variants. Exactly. So it's again racism, and you see, we have to look deep. We have to be introspective. We have to really sit down and look at why is the world treating us like that? It may be our fault by the fact that we have not done the right things, but we are not the only people. It also be that, look, some people just don't hate the guts of Nigeria and Nigerians.
So that's a very good moment to take a moment's break. When we return, we'll be looking at the other dimensions of the politics of Omicron, like the Nigerian situation with Dubai, issues of vaccines, and of course what Nigerian scientists and African scientists and the African Union can do in all of this. Please stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back. If you are just joining us, this is Daily Politics on Trust TV. And today we're looking at the politics of the Omicron variant of COVID-19. You can also follow the discussion via our social media platforms on Facebook, Instagram, and on YouTube. So just before we went on break, I was looking at, okay, we have on the one hand Britain and Canada. And then on another hand, we have Saudi, where at least we, as also a Muslim country, we have that obligation to be able to go and perform religious duties where people have. But then there is also this case ongoing with Dubai, which has resulted into a sort of diplomatic rose between Nigeria and Dubai. What exactly is going on, and how does COVID-19 and Omicron feature into all of this row between Nigeria and Dubai and the United Arab Emirates?
First of all, the basis, I mean, the origin of the crisis we have with, Dubai, that's United Arab Emirates, was the COVID-19, because they at first they restricted us, our people, from going there because of what they believe was, our poor handling of the COVID-19 protocols and COVID-19, issue in Nigeria.
Okay. But so that was before the Omicron variant?
Yeah, before the Omicron. Even before we'd had that,
okay,
that it was already, there was that issue on ground.
Okay.
But of course, then of course, then the issue of flight restrictions came in, and then it took over. It morphed from the COVID-19 issue to flights.
Okay.
Flights into and out of Dubai from Nigeria, and also from Nigeria. I mean, the Nigerian carriers.
Yes.
Okay, because for a long time, the Emirates, which is Dubai's airline, enjoyed a near monopoly on the Nigeria-Dubai route. I mean, it flies twice a day from Lagos, and then once a day from Abuja. So you're talking about a frequency of about 21 frequencies from Nigeria alone, and with full payload. If the Emirates didn't have a full payload of passengers, they wouldn't deploy the airplanes. I've flown to Dubai, and the airplane they deploy here are almost always full. Sometimes you don't even get a booking.
But the Emirates is not the only the Emirates is not the only airline, and UAE are not the only countries with that monopoly of Nigeria's international flights. Britain has that of British Airways controls Nigeria, London direct flights. So does Air France for Nigeria, Paris. Flights and several other ones like that. Why is this one specific?
Yeah, well, because you see, the truth about it is that the frequency of Nigerians traveling to Dubai is much more than these other countries. Of course, you can say the same thing. I mean, Britain is almost there. It's almost at par.
2 in Lagos, 1 in Abuja.
So Britain 2.
Yes.
And then, of course, they have enjoyed that monopoly because there is no Nigerian carriers have been, virtually, thrown out of the competition because they couldn't cope with the competition of both of Nigeria, Britain, and Nigeria, Dubai. But then, of course, and then they've come to take it for granted that they will always have this monopoly. And that's because we have not developed the capacity. Our airlines have not developed the capacity to at least take some chunk of the business on those routes. So they have come to monopolize and dictate the terms. But now the Nigerian government, after exhaustive discussions with Dubai in this case, arrived at we are going to open we're going to allow you to come in because we allow you to start flights into Nigeria. But we also want you to allow our carrier to also, compete on that route. And then that's when they put up excuses. And of course, what you are talking about is they want the opportunity to continue to monopolize the route and to be able to,
But in all honesty, can we say it's entirely their fault? Because international politics and international business and international economy is about national interest first, So should that be Dubai's fault or Nigeria's own fault for not having its own national carriers? For example, the Arik Air, and then later Ahmedview, they used to fly London, Abuja route, and even to Paris as well. But at some point,
there's always what is called
all the way to US. At some point, they crumbled.
There's always
is the problem not the internal aviation policy within Nigeria, where you have small airlines that claim to be, that each big man owns one airline, and that big man owns another airline, but all of them combined, they don't amount to one single serious airline. Isn't that the problem?
There's always the air agreements, the bilateral air services between countries have different components. Some of that component, a country can decide to say, because I don't have the capacity, I yield it to you, but under certain conditions. Okay? Another country will say, okay, yes, for now I don't have the capacity, but when we have the capacity, you should be able to say, okay, you should be able to allow, as we have allowed you in, you should be able to allow our own carrier to be able to get at least a certain percentage or a certain chunk of that service. Now, for a long time, as I said, Emirates had the monopoly of the Nigeria-Dubai route. But now we have an airline which, for all practical purposes, is willing to take the challenge, to be able to take the challenge of operating as a Nigerian carrier.
6 times or 7 times.
into Dubai. And what we're saying is, since what the Nigerian government is saying is that, look, since we've given you a monopoly over this on this route, now is the time for you to now allow at least a Nigerian carrier that has, at least by our own reckoning, has shown capacity to be able to at least.
So who is losing if Nigeria has only if there are no flights from Nigeria to Dubai? We see travelers being stranded in Lagos and also in Abuja last week. So who is losing the more? Is it Dubai that is losing more, or Nigeria? Is it the United Arab Emirates or Air Peace, the Nigerian carrier?
Well, everybody loses.
Okay.
But of course, we have been losing. That's the truth about it, because there are routes that we ordinarily should be able to compete. I mean, you have Kenya Airways, you have Ethiopia Air. Our capacity, if we can develop that capacity, Egypt Air, exactly. If we can develop our capacities, we can at least be able to, hold our own. We may not be able to compete with the major international airlines and carriers, but at least where we can say, okay, on this route that Nigerians, that there are a lot of Nigerians try to, use Dubai, London, we should be able to have some bit of Nigerian, participation reasonably, good participation. But we've allowed that to happen, and it's become like, given that we cannot have it. But now that we have a Nigerian airline that says, look, I'm willing to take up the challenge. I'm willing to put, willing to develop the capacity to be able to, meet this challenge. And then we find now it's not the problem from Nigeria. It's the stalling tactics from Dubai. So that means,
the UAE, they have not agreed to allow Dubai to fly into, allow Air Peace to fly into Nigeria, because Nigeria retaliated immediately. Should we do the same with countries like Saudi, countries like Britain and Canada that have also shut their own borders to Nigeria, or the dynamics between Nigeria and these countries are different?
Yeah, the dynamics are quite different, because in the case of Dubai, Nigerian route is quite, lucrative for them.
Okay.
Very lucrative. And of course, apart from the money they make from Nigerian tickets, Nigerians also go there to spend a lot in terms of business transactions, all kinds of things. So you are talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars every day leaving Nigeria and being deposited in Dubai. So, well, you may say, why do they even have to go to Dubai? Why can't they go to other places? But because Dubai has made it easier for Nigerians to travel there to transact business. So in that case, yes, the Dubai authorities know that they cannot afford to shut Nigeria. It's not just about flying there, which is in itself is lucrative, but also the amount of money we spend to transact businesses, to do a lot of things there in Dubai. Some for leisure, some for tourism, some for medical, some for just a lot of Nigerians have property in Dubai. So that is where you can say that it's going to be a lose-lose situation for both countries.
Thank you. So let's go back to COVID-19 again. This vaccines issue. Only about 3% of the global of the population in the developing countries have been vaccinated. In the developed countries like the UK and the US and Europe, that figure is over 66%. In Nigeria, it's even less than. In Nigeria's case, it's just 1.7. That's just about half the average, the global average for developing countries. So you have 3% of vaccines, of 3% vaccinated in the developing world, and against 66% vaccinated in the developed world. And then in Nigeria in particular, you have even half of that 3%, just about 1.7. What does that say about the global politics of vaccines?
Yeah, because it's a very unfortunate situation, because the developed world, who have the capacity, who have the resources to be able to help, stop the spread of these vaccines, didn't make any concerted or strong efforts to make sure that the less developed countries develop the capacity or have the capacity to meet the challenges of the vaccines. Now, for instance, look, we are talking here of, they have taken all the precautions, all the resources to be able to, meet the challenge in their country. And then they left us on the receiving end. In fact, some of the vaccines that they managed to give us have been found to be of low shelf content.
Shelf life, yes.
Shelf life, sorry.
Yeah.
So that's to tell you there's no sincerity in the whole management of the spread of the prevention of the spread of the pandemic, and in the effort towards providing vaccines. So there's a whole lot of politics about everything about it has been negatively politicized, because it's not just about finding solutions, but also denying solutions to other categories of people. As if, look, we want you to die in your thousands before we can come in and start looking, like benevolent interventionists. We want you to continue to die. When you die in thousands, then we can begin to say, oh yeah, we are coming in now. And then, make negative politics out of it. It's not proper. Because at the end of the day, the whole world gets
But what is Africa going to depend on donations? Because donations are going to be only a trickle, and not just only a trickle, they are going to be quite strategic. For example, the United States has donated, before yesterday and today, they donated about 4.8 million vaccines to the whole of Africa, 1 billion people, 4.8 million. And what they did is they gave 3-point-something million out of that, to Egypt, next door neighbor to Israel, and then they gave the rest, 1-point-something million, to the rest of Africa, some select countries like Gabon and Kenya here and there, and so on. But yesterday they donated 2.5 million doses to Nigeria. Now, is Africa going to wait on donations for vaccines, something that is so dastardly about health?
Well, it shows the kind of situation we find ourselves in Africa. I mean, we have never always wanted to go and develop our capacities. We always want to wait for the benevolence of countries around the world, and it's not proper. It's not the right way to conduct yourself. For instance, you talk about vaccines, the politics of vaccines. All this time that the COVID, hit the world, we should have mobilized our resources here to try to see how we can also join the global efforts in trying to find solutions to it, or even try to we can develop the capacity. We should start from somewhere. We don't have to wait. We've been waiting for the vaccines, for the research into the result of the research into the vaccines to come from the developed world, and that is not the right thing to do.
The scientists in South Africa that discovered the new variant, can they develop a vaccine too?
They can, because of all countries in Africa, I think South Africa and Egypt have the capabilities, better capabilities to develop, the vaccines in Africa. But we need to collaborate. We need to be able to get together. In Nigeria, for instance, it's not even in the health sector, even in the economic sector. We have universities all over the country. Over 100 universities that have economics departments, yet we have not been able to fashion out an economic paradigm unique for Nigeria to be able to say this is how we want to engage the world in economic terms. We have not done the same thing with this one. We are waiting, and in my new school, 2.5 million vaccines for 200 million people from America has been celebrated. I mean, come on, what are we doing, for God's sake? We should be able to say, look, okay, fine, America, we accept your donations, but we want to be able to develop the capabilities ourselves. And it's not something to us. That is why we should show capability. We should show abilities to the world that, look, we are ready to help ourselves. Help yourself, the world will help you. But if you sit down and expect the whole world to come to your aid all the time, donate, and you can't do anything to help yourself out of a situation. I mean, some of these countries are not happy that we somehow have been able to weather the worst effects of this.
Yes.
So it's like, look, these guys, it's so they are disappointed that the opportunity for them to showcase Africa as a helpless, weak continent did not come, and so somehow they say, well, they're giving it out in a form of derisory manner, and we should be able to say, look, we are tired of being. There should have been effort by the government.
Some people have been suggesting that the easiest way to make vaccines available globally is for the Western countries whose investments, we must note, went into developing these vaccines, for them to lift the copyright restrictions on the results of the researches that led to the development of these vaccines, so that scientists everywhere around the world can copy and produce vaccines straight in their country. Biden once mentioned this. So shouldn't that be something that countries like Nigeria and South Africa and maybe even the African Union, shouldn't they push further and stronger on something like that?
Yeah, but then have we shown the disposition to do that? We have always, I mean, we as I said, when the vaccines, when the pandemic hit the world, we should have developed a task force, a very serious task force that would go around the world, or at least try to, push the position that we must have this. We must be able to, we should do all we can to make sure that, the world, takes us seriously and say, look, we are serious. We want to be able to also join in the search for solutions, scientific solutions that we can apply here. But you and I know that there are no free lunches in the world. So the politics and the economics of it, more importantly, would factor in here, because the countries that are going to take the lead in developing the vaccines would not want to give you would not want to give us the results of the research, because it is a gold mine for them, for their pharmaceutical companies, for their health companies, and all that. So if they did that, then they are giving away that advantage that they've always had. It's all about, it's the whole thing about economics, international economics. Advantage, continue to hold on to your advantage so that the other person will come to you for solutions to even his own problems. So at the end of the day, for you to expect that these people are going to give it to you, it's a misnomer. You have to pressure them. You have to ensure that.
What about the idea that over 1 million vaccine doses have expired in Nigeria? Maybe because there is apathy. People are not interested in taking the vaccines. So even if you produce the vaccines locally and the demand is not there, people are not interested in taking them. What will be the implication?
I think it is imperative on the government to ensure that Nigerians take interest in the issue of the COVID and to get the people to key in. But when you restrict the whole thing to just a task force that just comes out and reads out results or reads out findings, and then the whole idea is to spend money, to make budgets for spending money, and it ends there. People are going to say, well, I don't see how I factor in the whole thing. But if you make it a very, very important national imperative, and say, look, we have to, one way or the other, you key into it, you get all the stakeholders, all the necessary, what do you call it, all the necessary, stakeholders to be able to get together and say, look, from this perspective, we have to make sure that we develop the capacity. From that, so altogether, the country is moving together towards resolve. That's how countries do this. But in the case of Nigeria, it's embedded or restricted to just one area of a government, and it just becomes the job of the task force. And they are the ones who continue to reel out the figures without telling us how they've been able to engage the Nigerian people into keying into the whole pandemic issue. So at the end of the day, people develop apathy. Say, oh, it's not my business. After all, if this thing becomes too much for me, I'll look for natural or native remedies for it, and then I'll move on with my business.
Thank you very much. Malin Liasugodu, thank you very much for coming on the show today. Thank you also, viewers, for staying with us. We are now at the very end of today's program. Thank you for staying with us, and do join us again same time tomorrow when we bring you another edition of Daily Politics. I am Suleiman. Enjoy the rest of your day.